fotna democracy eyema before anase enyema yen kwasi broni trim popa ene sentia wode vaccination eba abibiman mu na family plan so mpo no enhye ban ana kwasi broni hye ye e wodi krom entia wode etoa yen eba ne sen ana gay ati atese e wiase afana nyinara ene we se illuminati ene we se freemason ene we se sumwe mu ni nyinara ahyase firi he no broni trim po a wode sanyema we nyinara eba no de atoa abibiman mu no ene sen we entram so hwe wake up Africa kwasi da we ni kwasi da bia awia dumienu ekopem awia no mienu live on Royal TV eye adwumadi a ofa poku danko ye executive director edema free the mind movement ene ofa Israel Nkrumah a eye coordinator edema free the mind movement no
ebeka me Kofi Kumi ho
na yesim konya na madi dwumadi ho chiame na ensem bia tise no ye gina twekronkron so abakosem ene ntwere ahodo so na ede mo hu ba bia obibini ufiri enu mu a edro ene soma a wosombo na mabrofo sisi a che ebra so se call together twele kaye no etumi bam ne no ana hyase o free the mind movement dwumadi e say wake up Africa dwumadi so praso say ye fa dwumadi live on Royal TV so kwase da we ni kwase da bia awia dumienu kopim no mienu na ya de so adwenche na wasemmisa ye ano e de amount wake up Africa abibiman mama yen sorry
one business general Abatown Eyeniko multimedia so pay video editing photo shoot photo editing documentary business advert music video funeral program birthday parties onua uni haukra esan say Niko multimedia ebeye ni nyina na so yenwie yo so we wedding papa bi Niko multimedia si en ha ho kra o me cover ni nyina ma so we sorry anaso say we edwumakuo bi a opesa u streaming live u program aye social media handles na aye Twitter Facebook and the keka ho na Niko multimedia si woni how esan so mo ye ni nyina live abra program na ekoso Niko multimedia si omotonton gadget aye media gadget papa ebini aye audio and video equipment cameras speakers microphones mixers ni nyina Niko multimedia aye ho adwuma Niko multimedia ewo koforidia eho ana motare betimi afre Niko multimedia ewo 0244549107 aye Niko multimedia the media general our town. Thank you.
Wake up Africa Royal Television osomfo Kofi Kumi majimegwa na onum se kwese da bia na premo to sei na majimegwa me ne mpanyifo mienu bi ene tena se yesinkonwa majimadi yetumi edesomo eye wofa ya opoku dankwa a oye executive director de Maku FN Free the Mind movement one ne ba Israel Nkrumah a ono so ye national coordinator de Maku FN Free the Mind movement me ne okasa mpanyifo yi abe kaminsama yesinkonwa mane apane so ye sanse ne na osomfo Kofi Kumi metenase a na onim se ofa ya onso so tenase na Israel tenase a na eye abakosem mpensem ne hwehwemu a panyifo ya ye na ma jemere na mo de wa dosuko na no na wotwe ne mpanyifo tenase no ofa de ye wura mu education ofa my history Ghana ha history efa education ho ye school ko fiti senia Kwame Nkrumah mreso school no senia omo hyehye no form 4 NSS form ne ne keka ho no kwan ye fa so afi anumu adidi mu ma afede ebedu mpempensu bi afa ye benya JSS nam so no so ye benya senior high school ofa de ewura mu ma ye history no ma ebedu mpempensu bi no afede sana education no a omo hyehye ye no na ya adwen nyina nim se eye ne a eba beboa yen ama yabrabo na timi akọ nanim na eno na ofama ye hu se sana tetede no kwa na omo ye no na eye sanse no de na ma o makwanya ma etimi tete wo ma omo hu timi de eye niam bi because ebi ofa se omo fi school no kwa na omo ba ukọ wa fi school na wa ba fie no ontena fie voluntary work obeka kọ ba bia akọpa adwuma na nea wo sua na nea wo ye no na obua na wo de ye adwuma wo ho tetefo de no afi bedu JHS fo ne ade ne de no so no eno ano no koye atrotro akenkan SHS ema wo kire ebeninamu a ma afi bedu ba bia ebenya common call na no na ofade ye wura mu ma ye kohun se ye ka common call na no no ye nim se na eba beboa education na kire se sana adabraka bibia ni ho saa a eye adwuma ewo education ni mu na common core ne de na gese ebeku ye nkra be sey ye mofra ebedane ye mofra ne be ye wo mo se asikafo ewo wiase bia omo ye kakra bi no ena omo bo mu tiri mu po se omo de saa nhihye ne beba na omo ma enipa ne nyina no abeye libra omo de omo ye adwumayefo ama omo ho enu nti omo de saa niema ne baye ema ebeye ntete ya omo de gu kwam atiti wiase nipa nyina na omo de omo aye nko ama omo ho se ne be ya wo nipa no wontimi nwene na wankasa wontimi ntena se me ye bibia ma me ho enu no ene common call omo de baye enu mu na omo kofa Tibet yes Tibet nso ba ya ni nyina no na yenim se ba ababeboa na nso ni nyina no na wiye no eye se bosirimuka ema ye be hu Bill Gates ta ya kire ni sikapudu a sampanyifo ye sikafo yi omo de ataya kire na kese ni nyina ne se omo de ye mfa saa kwan ne so atete mmofra tete yen ne abeye enkoa de amon eno ofa de ye wura mu ema Israel ba mu ma o de ye wura tro kunkun ni mu ma ye ko hu saa de we nyina no nam school so ene religion so ema ni nyina no kofa ya na kese nipa ye dane ya adwene ti ya adwene no ati tintim ya adwene na ma ya adwene ye ntuma nyin anwene kura ema ye ho we ne niema eye na wotwe ne panyifo ejemre de ye wuram na enne panyifo na jemre ama enne fidua yi mu ebeye baja isanse baby enne ofade ye ekọ no eno de mo ambete masom anu nti ka kire onua na onua nka kire onua na ma obia enyi na fidie no emfi Royal Television na ha ene ye ginyansa ye penyansa ye nyanyansa ye tasi nyansa na watimi e de abobra enu ntie ne time puchu announcement kakra wo ho a meye announcement ni nyina ye se eye free the mind movement leadership obia oye leader e wo free the mind movement mu no me pa cho se oye rep se oye secretary se oye treasurer munyina no munim se ye wo school kese wo ho a ye de mamo a tambia no edu so a se wutimi bomoden na Ghana fan number bia wo bia no wutimi ba na ye school no date na ya hye a ye de hye school na se no disa juma no e on the 10th May na ye disa juma no na venue no e 37 ka okudi 37 eye culture center ho no baby a obedu na omo bo basketball na bi bo volley na nkola ni di agro culture center ho eho na ye hie mu eho na ye head office free the mind enu nti no oye free the mind ni na oye o leadership position bia bo modern na sane tie bia no eye on the 10th no be pm na school kese pa ye nyina ye nim eye professor emeritus 1 ono no odi anim sane a class swap ayere ne ho tete nkrofo no saa na ono nso obo ade mu no wafato ne ho so ono so betete obo ade ma na ba bia no kore hye bia no wakoyi aba no ne ose no kore no ba bia hye ne ne no ode betudwa na asem bia ba ama aye baja wo Ghana ha omo hwe free the mind de course aba ne niema no no na ye papa se ne de oje mre na ene bama ne so no ba bia asem na hye bia no wura no de pia ba anu nti na school no edie no enu nti bomoden na wafidie no enyimfi ha maka ne sa wie no afei yense mere kura ye be companyfo ne ho na yada omadi na afei ye wo ho no ye de aba Israel
komi
mo akwa aba
joso
mi yise bibia boko
cool
boko yakasa ntino me ata na waye cool ni de minim se bibia ye boko me dase okay
Kofi
papa ni
Kofi
eja mo akwa ba
meje usuo
jiri se bibia boko
wa de ada o
course aba no na me yese ne ase me mfrew ase ma me mfrew me ye dina ade ne ka che me se no jawo papa na sabri o papa ba bia asem ni abayi ba bia ehye bia no sabri oguso eye ho adwuma obeyi di aba eno nti minim se course aba ne nia amanfo akeka no obi afra na ne ka kire o ma ne se enne kwasie yi ye papa se tena TV ho enti minim se abusua ni nyina sabri o ma frefre o mo ho ama ebi no abotemko o TV no ho me se mere bebere amanhwe ya menya asem nti we de medani dwuma di ni jama medase
yo kofi medase ye di ka e be chi ahwefo nyina so bia te won ma wo gina ho me ebere de twem aja me ofie ye me hwehwe nkratem na Israel free kwaku Israel wo ofie na me ofie na se ba se o se mo so ebu ko sa menya na se de ko sa o se enko fu busasa yen yese after Pope Francis Pope bia mebiem ena wawu ena sese o ba be yi Pope foforo enti de na e ba beka am se o sa ena o se ebidum kra sa ye predict say na o ka kire o say e research ena ye ya ye prediction enti so o mo predict ya akosiada o mo ntrati no baba enti mu Israel wie no picture ba amadwen mu ne ye Yeshua ne Pharisee for confrontation wo mu konya bibi kaga wo bu hwa no wo kra wo nkofo no de wo mu ye ni enti atise ne amoma beka asem bia ensese muka enenu ni ento ye ya nam se okay kwesi ade dura ye behia na ye di nkomo enye program yi so a enka the Malachi prophecy of the popes enka Ghana for montreda if so obi a wachi bi na wakenkan bi no o ma abontin ma meka o meka sasenia mo kasa so and the book of Revelation chapter 17 the whole chapter talks about Babylon the Great and they say we come about first about and 17 10 11 eka about 8 kings on beba edi bibia bebe okwa asoro so for ntimi anka no antrew a program yiso and ye beka say Malachi prophecy a Irish saint bia oko Vatican and okoduru ho no journey no na by road until okoduru no abre we see 1139 okoduru ho no na 1140 and or so one of the hills 7 hills na room no akobom pai ntia ko no konya ni so ade say 111 popes and the final one was 112 woman the baby be Roman now after that the city of 7 hills will be destroyed. You know, I encounter no one a share scripture. Say now the chrono ya can't the book of Revelation that the 7 kings, the 8 kings of Revelation. You be do way they just refreshing the memory. Enti a cocoa say a horse or can say the 112 pope no Korea. Destruction of Rome begins and no can say perdition. Enti the first time I can say and Francis so and a perdition a bepa. Apparently say no and also free war. Then the chapter is closed as the last pope. That is a one. Wow, no. And I'm so ignorant. A so chair wunty. Oh, they know any man is a Mukwaya and Mukwaba. Pope, you be another pope. Pope, you be another pope. And who they wouldn't say sign a system. And you know, who subject to ignorance to public ridicule. Baby, I'm a free bar, any baby, I'm free bar. Two different positions. And to what by count there, no, you look back, if you know our feeding now, if you say, Bibia ni wa, Emma me confirm, say, yeah, can, the last book. Invariably, and I'm say, a system, or no, or one a year, on the soon you may nipa, and to say, Ubi kwa, ubi abadia, on the own say, oh, yeah, they are almost normally, no, but when him said they are all ban. The Juma or Babi. Ye behu ni na we dey just introduction bi. And it say ye dey ka. Enti na akwa to say, oh can we? Yensu aka we ato ho. Enti ene no yaba
sani afa receive go hu Yeshua ne ye kwa confront no ye pe bibia aka na chese dia tinahwe eso nya ba no start bie na no a afọ mo pe bibia fa ene no saa ne be ye no enti medical aka eno saa amia wie no ene sani na ye refresh your mind we start ye no 1139 ena bishop a ne frɛ no Malaki Obaga oko Rome sabe no nya 2 dioceses enti no kwa akopɛ confirmation and support ultimately about manage enti onya amra oni Pope Innocent II ekotena no sabe no nya anisuade hunu sɛ nya yɛken sɛ 112 popes ne beba afi esom no wafiase enti it is alleged say or the manuscripts ekoma pope found in some copy archives and for over 450 years say na bibi sa ahye ho no bia ni until sa kwa Benedictine historian and Dominican researcher near friend Arnold Won ono and okohu ye and or the publish the book on Catholic history into ono no ma ebe dead di ma wiase nyina hu se na obi aba be ye prophecy se Roman Catholic Church no popes ahodo ebe bagi the wie no eba the process of destruction of the same city no enso afrase enti oye se wie no osaba de krom obae no 1148 oye the mass wie na owu be fa no until 1190 and Pope Clement canonized no as the first Irish pope enti no videos ebe hwedi nyina na ebe sa kan all the and as most of these popes na buy no obi a de enso se ne ositro na ye bibi to say Latin phrases obi ho no ma ne de no eka ade a ebe apeto emfa Pope John Paul II on the ne de no the description no at the time onu hunu you know 1140 ho do no yes the labor of the sun say nipa no obeba no on this period no say no describe no ampeni ampa John Paul II by no ye wo no na eclipse of the sun who faith April 205 ayekwa see on the 8th no there was another eclipse sabi eno no de oye ne nema enti o keka we nu nyina wie ya afi ono abewu ko afi e ba no eno na nyane wiase fo se bibi se wo wiase enti no enkofo start ze ne yehwe pope wingu ani ehu so obi obeba no description no say wa publish enti ebe fit ya na enti the more the popes left and some came to replace them no na fe the prophecy no ejin hini enfiti ase akwa na nkofo bi say fake e bi say fraud ani enema de bebre but o ti akire na say obi ba pa description of them ensesa ya untimi nsan kase e bo bi cause ono tro no 1140 we oko de dada is 2025 e dey see akire aye pre enye no kre 1140 ana yen isi ebenya aye no ene ehu se e dovetailed into the book of Revelation enti se we aka na se no kre enye no kre dia ene ye nso ebekọ akohwe Revelation dia no enti ho na the best start but answer no bibi na trigger ya e di adwene nso ekokosi ho 1798 ena Napoleon Bonaparte French Revolution ni general na friend General Berthier ostomu Rome sabre na Pope Pius VI ona na oye pope enti omuko sizi no ɛna wɔn yi ne fisherman's ring na wɔn bubu no kyerɛ sɛ yɛtu adeɛ so ɛna wɔn exile no to France ɛhokora na ɔkɔgu yɛ ɛma Napoleon kan sɛ ɔpɛsɛ Romanfoɔ te aseɛ sɛ anytime bi ɛsɛ wɔn pɛ sɛ wɔn si new pope no ɛsɛ wɔn ba bɛhu no ɔno ama permission 1850 the Battle of Waterloo ɛna Napoleon so kɔhyia ne meta yɛdifiti no ɛgye yɛdifiti ne saa no na kyerɛ sɛ afei deɛ onipa a wabiem nti ɛkɔbaa sɛ afei wɔn yɛ Italian peninsula na wɔn kyekyɛ mu papal states ɛna duchies nti Romanfoɔ bɛnya a lot of states a na yɛ wɔn dea because Rome as a city no na yɛ wɔn city in fact wɔn na kyekyere city no nti ɛne deɛ obiara ntumi ɛna wɔn nyɛ nti 1870 ɛna Italian army nso baa ɛna wɔn bɛka sɛ daabi sɛ wɔn pɛ sɛ wɔn yɛ no wɔn pɛ sɛ wɔn de Kingdom of Italy ɛba nti Pope ano wɔ hɔ Pope Pius the 9th ɔsɛ mmɛmɛ deɛ mɛmpene da adeɛ wei sɛ yɛyɛ tie baabi na afei deɛ mu na mo ba bɛyɛ ne kyerɛ mo abɛgye yɛmpene nti wɔn nso carry ne out no a few buildings a wɔn gyama asɔre no ɛna wɔn nso yɛ sɛ ɛnna mempie mfiri akora no makɔ abɔnten nti asɛ house mo kan sɛ house arrest bi na yɛde ama no ɛna owu mu a na deɛ baa ne sɛ popes bebree wɔn yɛ about 4 or 5 succeeding popes na obi aba saa na ɔbɛn nti asɛm no kɔɔ so for about 60 years a ne friend the Roman question ɛna 1922 Benito Mussolini ɔba power saa brɛ no ɛna Pope Pius the 11th also ba power don ba na kyerɛ saa sɛ yɛbubu Benito Mussolini aso da bia na Pope ne ne nkɔfoɔ yi ɔmo di atam no ɔmo ha kyerɛ sɛ na be na sum kra akeka no ɛyɛ obien kotrasi ne nhwɛ ne mpesi ka bi mfa ma mo na afei munya yɛ haw ne yi nti 11 February 1929 ɛna ɔmo kɔ sign ne bi a frɛ no the Lateran Treaty no ɔmo kɔ sign ne no ɛno na ma ɔmo be create the first Vatican city state afei de ma Vatican nya ɔno a country within Rome nti ɔno a ya create a man or a head of state or a absolute monarch tell we be and it say yes I this sika ho and a detached the man say ya compensate you for the loss of property buildings be near you know obet you as start before for baby yeah pay assume and also pay freedom into creative way man yes ya start the first picture.
First picture no abodi adaso na ye signing of the Lateran Treaty. Mo fa sa picture na nto so mfa maye. Na mo de to so no e bia na wo fie o pese wo de o SMS ana WhatsApp message obetimi de aba ma transfer meje akenkan de amount. Ye number obetimi de afa so ne 0206 519335 0206 519335. Ane pacho picture no
treaty no en wo mo ye. O mo signing ye no. Cardinal Gaspari. Cardinal Gaspari no a Secretary of State. Emma Vatican. A Roman, so I have been a big creative Vatican. And Benito Mussolini soon signing on behalf of King Victor Emmanuel III. Okay. Because they are in the Kingdom of Italy. They almost a transform way. Now almost signing here. Now circle the book of Revelation 13:3. The other thing said 1798 action Napoleon muteki yeno by deposing the Pope no. Now say one of the hairs of the beast has been wounded. And you know, the same 13:3 no, by signing the treaty, Lateran Treaty no, the wound has been healed. Come on, Revelation 13:3.
Revelation chapter 13 verse 3. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed.
Eno omo ye Lateran Treaty.
Okay.
1798, the wound by.
Okay.
The same head, I wounded, 11 February 1929, and omo healing.
The Napoleon
wound, and Benito Mussolini, no healing.
Okay.
It's Sabreno, and Vatican, a country.
Okay.
Ebenyani bibia ono the head of state wonyani dear ben bibia so nya bia to the point grass of prison now on two babies say hey now assurance of criminals to be and it just for the aid.
Okay.
And they are known about ya after my so ko Revelation.
Okay.
Revelation 17 no e ko wura no and a man you who say BBC wo but answer no you share first video. Lateran Treaty ya any send your music Pope and for who need international affairs stay neutral and as any never be and you share the first video.
The first video no abodi adasone the Lateran Treaty and the creation of the Vatican City State. Munja sa video no enfengu mai.
The popes used to rule a country called the Papal States that covered much of modern-day Italy. It was during this 1,000-plus-year reign that the popes constructed St. Peter's Basilica, the largest church in the world, and also built a wall around the base of a hill known as Vatican, upon which St. Peter's stood. But the Kingdom of Italy next door thought Rome would make an awesome capital for their country and so conquered the Papal States. His nation destroyed, the Pope hid behind the walls of Vatican and conflictingly refused to acknowledge that the Kingdom of Italy existed, while simultaneously complaining about being a prisoner of the Kingdom of Italy, which, according to him, didn't exist. Rather than risk religious civil war by getting rid of the Pope, the Kingdom of Italy decided to wait him out, assuming he'd eventually give up. But religion is nothing if not obstinate, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 popes, and 60 years later, nothing had changed. Which now brings us to Benito Mussolini, the then Prime Minister of Italy, who was tired of listening to the Pope complain to Italian Catholics about his self-imposed imprisonment, so Mussolini thought he could score some political points by striking a deal which looked like this. 1, Italy gave the land of Vatican to the Pope, and 2, Italy gave the Pope a bunch of apology money. In return, the Pope acknowledged that Italy existed, and 2, the Pope promised to remain neutral in politics and wars, on the off chance that, Mussolini thought this might be a thing. The deal was signed, and a new country, Vatican City, was born, and today the tiny nation on a hill has all the things you'd expect of a country: its own government that makes its own laws that are enforced by its own police who put people who break them in its own jail. It also has its own bank and prints its own stamps and issues its own license plates, though only its citizens can drive within its borders, presumably because of the terrible, terrible parking. And as the true mark of any self-respecting nation, it has its own top-level domain, .va. But despite all these national trappings, Vatican City is really not like any other country. Hold on to your fancy hat because it's about to get weird. To understand the Vatican, there are 2 people and 2 things you need to know about: the famous Pope, the incredibly confusing Holy See, the country of Vatican City, and along with that, the almost completely unknown King of Vatican City. But first, the Pope, who gets a throne to sit upon and from which he acts as the bishop for all the Catholics in Rome. Actually, all bishops in the Catholic Church get their own thrones, but because the Bishop of Rome is also the Pope, his throne is special and has its own special name, the Holy See. Every time a Pope dies or retires, there is a sort of Game of Thrones to see which of the bishops will next get to occupy the Holy See. So while popes come and go, the throne is eternal, and as such, the name the Holy See not only refers to the throne, but also all the rules that make the Catholic Church the Catholic Church. When Mussolini crafted that aforementioned deal, technically he gave the land of Vatican City to the Holy See, which, believe it or not, is a legal corporate person in international law. Basically, every time you hear the words the Holy See, think Catholic Church Incorporated, of which the Pope is the CEO. Now, back to the King. The King of Vatican City has absolute unchecked power within the country's borders, and his presence makes Vatican City one of only 6 remaining absolute monarchies in the world, including Brunei, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Swaziland. The King's absolute power is why Vatican City can't join the European Union, because only democracies are allowed. Though Vatican City does, strictly speaking, have a legislative branch of government staffed by cardinals appointed by the Pope, the King of Vatican City can overrule their decisions at any time for any reason. So why do you never hear about the king of Vatican City? Because though king and pope are two different roles, they just happen to be occupied by the same person at the same time, which has the funny consequence that because the pope is elected and the king is all-powerful, but they're the same guy, it makes Vatican City the world's only elected, non-hereditary absolute monarchy. It's this dual role that makes untangling Vatican City so difficult because the pope, depending on the situation, acts either as the king of the country of Vatican City or the pope of the Holy See. Got it?
Abusia me no nyina no ye nigu so ayehwe eye Wake Up Africa jumedi e Royal Television so na video ye kohwe yi e kire Pope Vatican City na wo ho no kwan ye fa so e de baaye ani tumi kura wom ani jumedi e nam so a omoye Vatican City na wo ho no video no kire ye say ye wundu no sane ofa kan ye no e na obenya ne healing eno no kire say Napoleon ene ball no sa botro no ena Mussolini so ebe hili no owie no benya asa tumi afi oye ono nko an sa oye ahenie a sa ahenie no osan eye ye fe ne sen asori so panyipa enti Holy See ena ahenie ena osan ye government abamu osan ye government titika ohene de me yesi o se politics on fa ho enwuram. So that same person no or was akonya na ya ahenie akonya no e na osan wa government amamuo nso akonya no e na osan ye asori panyi eti ono nko ano obaha na wabaha na wadi djuma no na obese mfimfia na afa ne Holy See na Holy See no e kire se owo tumi a e ma na kwanya ma otimi adi ne huwura babia ye ne opese oye bia wo wiase mu video no kire Vatican City ne tumi owo wasase so ne niema a otumi ye eno na video no ema ye kohwe no anka ni hu kwan se oye ohene dia anka otimi ba mamuo side be ye governance ho enso esan Holy See no oye no saa tumi ninti no otimi boha no wasan ba be boha esan Holy See tumi na ye dia ma no eno na video no ema ye kohwe over pacho me das
enti by signing the Lateran Treaty no recognition nyam ba ni nyina ne se all succeeding popes they were referred to as sovereign kings. They started Pope Pius the 11th on Babi Teki office 1922, and it was within his jurisdiction. There's a Lateran Treaty no one over here the first king. You can hear a second picture. The 8 kings of
the second picture na bodini here, the 8 kings of Revelation, the last pope. Mufasa picture no ento so maye.
Enti 8 kings ena omo ho Revelation no so kan. Enti na Malachi the prophecy no eba be dovetailed into the book of Revelation. Now the book of Revelation, you know, and Revelation 17, 10 and 11.
Okay, Revelation chapter 17, yeah, kind verse 10 and 11, you know. I'll say 10, no. And there are 7 kings, 5 are falling, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. 11. And the best and the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th and is of the 7th and goeth into perdition of Ambachomayi.
And the Revelation can't we know. And after you sabe compare Eddie share a young common for preacher into because Eddie vacancy be.
Okay, if I'm talking Mofa 8K no, the 8 kings of Revelation no, the last pope Mpa to Somaya. Yes, our picture no.
Enti ekoba said ye Malachi prophecy ne kan yi nyina no. Ni nyina na working into the book of Revelation.
Okay.
Enti e ba be hwe details enyina so a ye digina so a ye kan say the last pope no enie no ye say simu biem am obi ati.
MC amamu nyi fi so, mo
man na so.
Thank you. Mamu nyi fi so. Okay.
Enti you see, there are 8 kings of Revelation. 5 are falling. 1 is starting with Pope John Paul II as the sixth king. One no ba ya obehu say asọrọ no atitia pansam. In fact, book way the keys of this blood. Me ba chombe suspend we na the next speaker na to so.
Okay, yo.
The area be san dia ba.
Okay. Monfa book way into so mayen. I say the Malachi's prophecy, the last 10 books.
No. Skip we no.
Okay.
The keys of book
okay. Okay. Mo skip it and no na monko for no. The keys of this blood. Pope John Paul II versus Russia and the West for control of the New World Order. Malachi Martin. Mufasa of Ambato Edaso.
And the book way, ena state eniema bebre emra na fe church no san bae no reforms ane ye Russia en ne ka ka ho a esan ema asor no ebae. Na book way mu page 263 the next picture.
Okay, the next picture no the keys of this blood. Pope John Paul II versus Russia and the West for control of the New World Order. Malachi Martin, page 263. Okay. Mfacha mufasa picture no so ento so maye. Enye ne amode atosi. Bepa mucho enye ne amode atosi. I see the keys of this blood. Pope John Paul II versus Russia and the West for control of the New World Order. Malachi Martin's book no page 263. Sa page no eno sa picture na mo panto so mfa maye. Okay.
Okay.
Book na eba da so na of a marky baby na ho na mekan yi. I say by the time John Paul II came to the papacy, in fact, it was no longer even a secret that echelons of clerics in the Vatican itself had been deeply affected indeed. Perhaps the profoundest victory of the Gramscian process was visible primarily in the mind-blogging confusion, ambiguity and fluidity. Ambiguity and fluidity, that was already the hallmark of Rome's reaction to the rapid de-Catholicism of the church, as well as of the Vatican dealings with bishops who sometimes openly declared their independence from papal authority. To a large degree, papal and Vatican control had been effectively removed from the geo-religious machinery of the Roman Catholic Church. Pope John Paul did not arrive from Poland unaware. He understood better than most what had happened to his church in the West. He was, in fact, probably the only major non-communist world leader who knew the contribution Antonio Gramsci had made to operational Marxism around the world, and who understood both the murky process he had advocated and the Leninist machinery in which that process was now enshrined. Of
Mo 8 kings no santo.
Okay, of us enko back na mo fa picture no 8 kings picture no enfanto so enfa mayen.
If you the entire American say say Unu say prophecy say 5 kings have fallen.
Yeah.
One is situation no ba betu ye na kinkan ye no.
Okay.
Atetia pansam. Asofo no bi okra wom so ye Vatican no kra ye nkan ho bi. Because there was no idea motivate. Nti obaye no na so timi original ne na so no ye adwuma. Nti adwuma kese e na obaye obeye. Ya next picture no is a Newsweek there no.
Okay, next picture no here Newsweek 21st September 1987. John Paul, how he is changing the church. 1. Mo fa sa picture no ento so maye. Okay, the second one, Newsweek now, 21st September 1987. Now, John Paul, how he's changing the church. 2. Okay.
And you buy no be who say asor no atitia pansam no na so sorry. And then a revelation who say ono ena John who no in the vision say 1 is 5 are falling, 1 is and na madwuma kesia na da ho ma no so obeye e ro buy obeye. The next picture.
The next picture here, the traveling pontiff. Mufasa picture no into so my.
Ochini ko bebia na hwe map no a lines na hunu nyina ye ne travels across continents in an effort to build a church. Na hono na book we Albert Pike's 3 World Wars. Me hunu say Second World War buy no ya de buy say you betimi aka religion ahye na promote communism ekokopim say emre bi beba ave ebehia aso no for the final cataclysm na de aba obekinkan we amam we ebesi ha
Okay.
kan mam ni nyina aka John Paul adwuma no.
Okay. Where book where Albert Pike's to Mazzini, August 15th, 1871. 3 World Wars. Albert Pike, ni book no. Na obebi of Amakia Maya near page 1 na yesha say the Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the Fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and that the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm.
And the time of Behiano and John Paul by.
It's a religion, one or much say.
One man said that can say, say, you ever say here be more. Nay, mra, you ever be used for the final cataclysm. Destruction.
Okay.
You and a John Paul by. And you can't do man who call the next picture on there.
The next picture here, Daily Graphic, 18 September 1996. Pontiff, Reagan rocked communism. Book alleges. Mufasa picture na into so my.
Enti ekoba say communism ebe hwiase 1991. After a perestroika ne glasnost war Russia, ye reforms in nema ewie ni say communism be hwiase. Enti communism hwiase no ede che say John Paul nya kwan the Roman Catholic Church vessel see the center stage of global geopolitics. That is our word, Juma. Latin phrase, you know, you say the labor of the sun. The sun rises from the east, also a East European,
okay,
and a setting on the west. And the labor of the sun, and a kahona, a man energy, or to be the two, a quine the coba, yeah, the obetinia. Ekopim say on also so we need ye and we need ye no yes ye call the 7th king. Yes, I'm for picture no meto.
Okay,
the 8th king.
The 8th king picture no pato mo fa ento so mayen.
The 8th king, no, the 7th king. Yes, on over there. The 7th king will rule for.
Okay. Revelation 17 verse 11, verse 10 to 11. Okay. 10, no, I say. And there are 7 kings, 5 are falling, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. 11.
Okay. You don't 11.
Okay.
Empty. 1 is that's what don't qua the obebano obe rule for a relatively short time. When you read the book of Revelation, What about after John Paul II? Benedict the 16th.
Okay.
Benedict by Oazumu 19th April and obey a poop. Oba no also can say one only paper name no Benedict. Benedictine order no. Onye member and so you didn't confide no. Now a correspond with the Malachi a kind. I see the glory of the olive branch. Only a peacemaker, or only the no. Sanya Malaki kind, Sana Revelation, so at the bar. It's a bar, no, and our some more kind say. So, obey travel for a relatively short period of time, dear. And yet, Vatican announcement to be in February 2013. Say, Benedict said, now, who are doing a swat into Jaina Juma at the Atuho. And then a revelation kind. He must rule for a relatively short period of time.
Sir.
8 years. So, my bread. Many are holding into Medjuma to next picture.
Next picture, no, Daily Guide, 25th February 2013. God told me to go. Pope. Pachamufasa picture and so man.
And he will rule for a relatively short period. One who they buy. God told me to go. Next picture.
Confirmations. The Dihono New Crusading Guide, 23rd August 2013. God told me to resign. Ex-Pope Benedict. Mofa Sapicha Nonso and to Somaye.
And this is a revelation I can say. Obano Baba transfer.
Short period.
On check. Only 8 years.
Yeah.
And on the resignation here, the first in 600 years, our Pope be resigned.
Wow.
600 years. And on no can say. Emraso says so.
Because any DNA for Philip prophecy. Just see.
And it can say.
Okay.
Or they call it. You have a second video.
Okay. The second video, no, the surprise resignation of Pope Benedict the 16th. Mofasa video, no, engumai.
A sign from God. Just hours after the Pope announced his surprise resignation, the heavens over Rome opened and the top of St. Peter's Basilica was struck by lightning. As the sky was lit up by the huge bolt, it led to speculation as to whether Benedict XVI's boss was less than happy with the news. The apparent divine intervention came as the 85-year-old pontiff sent shockwaves through the church on Monday after announcing his retirement, the first pope to do so in 700 years, saying he no longer had the mental or physical strength to carry on.
Explorata, ad conditionem certam perveni, vires meas, in gravescente etate, non iam aptas esse ad monus Petrinum eque administrandum. Bene consciusum hoc munus secundum suam essentiam spiritualem non solum accendo et loquendo exequi debere, sed non minus patiendo et orando. Attamen in mundo nostri temporis rapidis mutationibus subjecto et questionibus mani ponderis pro vita fide perturbato, ad navem sancti Petri gubernandam et annunciandam evangelium etiam vigor quidam corporis et anime necessarius est, qui ultimis mensibus in me modo tale minuitur, ut incapacitate meam ad ministerium commissum bene administrandum agnoscere debiam. Qua propter bene conscius ponderis huius actus plena libertate declaro, me ministerio episcopi Rome, successore Sancti Petri, vi permanens cardinalium, die 11 aprilis bis 15 commissum, renunciare ita da die 28 februari bis 13 hora 20, sedes Rome, sede Sancti Petri vacet, et conclave ad elicendum novum sum pontificem, ab his quibus competit convocandum esse.
abusia sabiri wani guso a wo hwe eye dwumadi ya to ne din Wake Up Africa Royal Television so na obenya dwumadi video na ye hwe no e kire recognition of Pope Benedict the 16th kama or the resign ye ne announcement a oyeye ofa pacho edasi
enti or resign 2013 otna obi ne only health papa 2023 eno free yes
kobetimi aye adwuma
obetimi aye adwuma so nam se prophecy aka se
so resign
obaba abe for a relatively short period 2013 occurred. Yeah. And so 10 years later and son will free assassination. A true baby. Almost have a picture met will be.
Okay. Momfa 8 kings no picture no pacho no one of original suntin and dey ya na masan dia baso man medam wase. Ofa aba na.
Enti the 8th king.
Yeah.
And now be kind Revelation 17:11 no.
Okay.
The answer crambo no be kind 17:8.
Okay. Asana ma jampia by 11. Okay, Revelation chapter 17 verse 8 you know. You can also say the beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And and
18 no.
18 and making.
Traffic 11, 17.
Okay.
11.
Okay. 17, 11 no. Or say, and the beast that was and is not, and or say, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th and is of the 7th and goeth into perdition.
One about after Benedict.
Pope Francis.
Francis Nehemiah who said, Onudia he will ascend from the bottomless pit. Actually, say normally areas now you pope near no. This time, you know, Latin America, South America, when you go in free. Into one go in free honmono. And the home didn't see so I'll be back on your casa, you know. Or no so can assembly. The next picture, daily graphic.
Okay, the next picture here, daily graphic, 16th March 2013. Catholic Church gets first Latin American leader. What was our picture into so my? Okay, yo.
And that's when you can wait to screen.
Okay, of my main kind of Catholic Church, as a daily graphic, Saturday, March 16, 2013. Catholic Church gets first Latin American Pope, American leader. Born in Argentina, Pope Francis is the first Latin American to lead the Roman Catholic Church, as well as the first Jesuit. Quote. Okay. In quote, me quote Nyokai, I say, it seems my brother cardinals went almost to the end of the world to choose a pope.
They went almost to the end of the world to choose a pope. And a scripture and so even
bottomless pit. No. Almost the end of the world. Bottomless pit. I see how.
And you know, not as on one any a Juma
or
Baby. And to have a dear baby. I don't know, and everybody Benedict, no, 111 on the list of Malachi.
Okay.
And you know, 112 Anna Edruneso. Francis. And I see you ascend from the bottomless pit. And one why I didn't back on the one year, you know. Or say, it looks like my brother cardinals came almost to the end of the world where poop. And so we can't say each other. What do you say? Enti saying it here. I will call the next picture.
The next picture, no, the last pope, the decline and fall of the Church of Rome, John Hughes. Mofasa picture no ento som famaye.
enti book we ena ye ba behwem ena dam anim ha and also you go page 350.
Okay.
The next picture.
The next picture no enso so the last pope, page 350. Mufasa picture no ento so mfama yen. The last pope, page 350. Mufasa picture no ento so mfama yen.
Obekan amame eha edibesi
name no. Okay. The last pope ana a book no na edamanimi. Hey, we book we. Yo, enye book etwa. Nyame aye bia mame. Say me so menya books we kinkan. Yeah, I say the last pope. The papal prophecy of Saint Malachi ends with this Latin 25-word flourish containing some of the most frightening doomsday warnings written by any Catholic seer, be he a medieval saint or a present Renaissance forger.
So I say I had to hear me first answer no.
Okay. One thing is certain about the last pope in this prophecy. He will never be called by the name Petrus Romanus, Peter of Rome. There is an ancient unwritten rule in the College of Cardinals that no successor to the first pope will dare use his name, Malachi.
Enti no de wo mu ni say pope ye ni ho a obeba e be fo pope Peter. Eni e ya de da ho. College of Cardinals no nhihye. Enti na ekoba say Francis only the last of the prophesied popes no obaye no. No obi ehwe ani mu say eni e be frɛ no Petrus Romanus. Peter the Roman. And so anko basa. Rather no say wafa Edin Francis. The Dean Francis no Saint Francis of Assisi ono ni din. Na Saint Francis of Assisi ono ni din e de wo no Peter wom.
Okay.
It's a Peter wom dia na invariably no Pope Francis no oye Peter. Any onim. So what me who say coming out of the bottomless pit. What me who say the end of the world ya ba be pope. Any me ni dia edin no ntimi hu. The same play yebeko nyina yebeko 2013 the original back on ikai yebeko sesi a asabo kan ya apart from say call omba the end of the world we say ena nyina ya shia to elect a bishop of Rome one kan pope Peter the Roman eno asem ena obekan enti no ansa ne yebeko akohwe called the next picture.
The next picture no Saint Malachi's prophecy of popes. The last pope's cryptic warning doomsday. Mufasa picture no ento so mfama yen.
Wait, and a Malachi prophecy no said the 112 pope no are urban. Ono suna dwuma o ba be yini se bi mu de wo flower of flowers labor solis labor ni ne ka ono ne de ne ka yini enti no waba the 112 pope this is en kan mami classes on the
curious the prophecy of popes stops at the 112 pope and ends with a cryptic warning of doomsday. In the extreme persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will sit Peter the Roman, who will
Pope Francis. Oh,
yes,
that's him the Ekano.
Yeah. Peter the Roman, who will pasture his sheep in many tribulations.
On the time, and tutun sorry mu COVID aba, for no financial crisis, and have sex scandals. A local Roman Catholic Church across the world, and you know near Hoto. And so when you know, he was able to lead his church.
And when these things are finished, the city of 7 hills will be destroyed, and the terrible judge will judge his people. The end.
The end.
Where they are seeing
I had a see after no nobody said nipa be yi obi a yen classify no so a pope. Because I do about be no. Dear a chat to a pope bia be no and ya state diama Francis. Baba be execute ni ye. Until the end no actually say every sana who call the book of Revelation more can no so mami 17:11.
Okay. The book of Revelation, chapter 17, verse 11. You know, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7th, and goeth into perdition.
There can be honey. Ya ankaso obi biemu ba na assignment ni esi. And I'm so TV. Now ignorance. Asha menti no. Oh, the pope we dia fufuro free baby ba. Ofiri ma na eba. Enipa be yibi. Na ye bia we pope na assignment ye dia ma no no ewen. Ede na mpesa wo hwe no. Wo badwene ho, wo adwene ho. E ha na free ba. Also the oti o moko aya ni moko aba. Enti no there forever and ever pope wu a pope beba. Na time ben obo ade ahini ni ba. Time ben na mo sori na Jesus igbo enche no abo. Omra no na sa na eme nyina asizi. Enti no e dey ba asem e na moka. In any case, you refresh your mind because afi ni ebe ko de mu do. Francis ewu e dey na aba. Enyen ruho. Then we say you ba refresh your mind. You go 2013 March. Emra you dey for Francis Bechley biasisi woni. Video no there. Picture bi ba answer.
Ane.
I
say Petrus Romanus. The final pope is here. Thomas Horn and Chris Putnam. Mufasa video no ento
picture.
Sorry, Mufasa picture no ento so mfamaye.
Enunye.
Okay.
Enti no obi no so throw book omo so amudi Malachi prophecy na no book na so chen we.
Okay.
Ela omo so di information e ko hin van ba ye nyina de she mu se afi de final pope no onya ba asase so. Yen ko hwe video e to so.
Video na e ho no edi ho no ye the final pope is here. Munjasa video no ngummaye.
Hundreds of thousands from around the world have gathered in St. Peter's Square for the election of the new pope.
Nearly 900 years have elapsed since St. Malachi predicted the arrival. An entire world is waiting and watching for the arrival of Petrus Romanus.
Annuncio vobis gaudium magnum, habemus papam. Eminentissimum ac reverendissimum Dominum Georgium Marium, Sancte Romane Ecclesiae Cardinalem Bergoglio, qui sibi nomen imposuit Franciscum.
in the extreme persecution of the Holy Roman Church. There will sit Peter the Roman, who will pasture his sheep in many tribulations. And when these things are finished, the city of 7 hills will be destroyed, and the terrible judge will judge his people. And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into a lake of fire burning with brimstone.
Petrus Romanus, the final pope, is here.
Fratelli e sorelle, buonasera. Voi sapete che il dovere del conclave era di dare un vescovo a Roma. Sembra che i miei fratelli cardinali sono andati a prenderlo quasi alla fine del mondo, ma siamo qui. Prima di tutto vorrei fare una preghiera per il nostro vescovo emerito, Benedetto XVI. Preghiamo tutte insieme per lui, perché il Signore lo benedica e la Madonna lo custodisca. Buonanotte e buon riposo. Bene.
Abusia sabri wani guso a wo hwe eye Royal Television ha de yaka nyansa nimde ha na obefa no ha na obenya no ha na otase bi video ye ko hwe ye no pope ene kasa no wahu se one friend who pope do no akasa kasa one friend who pope also ye the bishop of Rome kinkan ngoma na sana esisudia Petrus Romanus, the bishop of Rome, the last pope. And until we idea that ye no or can I say it seems my brothers have come from the ends of the world. And nobody na ba na fe de o ma be do on no wa of ambacho me dase.
Na Francis oya brantie no onya lungs problem eno na ma yi twa ni lungs no right lung no ho nema enti ono awo ho no wa fire ho bebrem enti na obaaye obeka asese ko ba se bebeye oyarefo a mintimi nya hwia meja adwuma na to enti o si 2013 no obaaye no sabre no ano to ne resignation letter because onim de baby u free ba tachire no hu se enye no na eba be detail no so only the last pope obeye adwuma no frenchem the next video.
The next video no here. I signed my resignation letter in 2013. Pope Francis. Munja sa video no engu mai.
Interview was released. He says that in case of medical impediment, he has already signed his resignation and has given it to one of the Vatican cardinals. During an interview to the Spanish newspaper ABC, the Holy Father revealed that at the beginning of his pontificate, he gave a letter declaring that he would step down in the event of serious and permanent health impediments that made it impossible for him to exercise his role. Joining us now from Rome is Andreas Tonhauser, EWTN Vatican Bureau Chief. Andreas, great to see you. Over this past weekend, Pope Francis celebrated his birthday and, as we mentioned, also released an interview. What more can you tell us about that?
Sure. So Pope Francis turned 86 years old this weekend. Despite all the reports about his health problems, he looked quite well while receiving the many congratulations from around the world. On Sunday, an influential Spanish media outlet published an interview with Pope Francis, and one of the topics was also regarding his health. It was quite a surprise, Tracy, because he disclosed that he actually signed a resignation letter many years ago in case of impediment for medical reasons. He gave it to the then Secretary of State, Cardinal Tarcisio Bertone. And the same year, in 2013, Cardinal Pietro Parolin took over this office. However, it's not clear, said the Pope jokingly, if the letter had been passed on. It was the first time that the Holy Father mentioned that. However, he spoke quite openly and frequently about his health problems with his knee and always rejected rumors about a more severe disease. By the way, this kind of resignation letter is not unique to Pope Francis, because also Paul VI had one, and regarding to Pope Francis, as he said, even Pius XII might have signed such a letter. So, almost business as usual.
Pope Francis.
Abusia wani guso a wo hye eye dwumadi a yato ne din Wake Up Africa Royal Television so na when a video a kire tama ya de Pope Francis esi so no letter bi o choto ho na wa cho se ono ne resignation letter yede ne si so na o cho sa letter ne to ho na for me calculate here no 12 years a o cho sa letter no wa tena so ha konwa ne so ha enti obi anko cho resignation letter de ka o cho to ho na nanka wa pe oba biafa na so we de wa to ho na so wadi odbenya 12 years na che se e kire se even though o cho sa letter ne to ho so dwumadie binti no na so we dwumadie no 12 years after ansana ende oni hobio of ambacho medase
enti ene Pope Francis ni ho enti mo a ena mo se ono last wawu ye be sifufo wawu ye be sifufo ave mo ntwen answers no ebeba.
Okay.
The next video.
The next video no here. The last pope is dead. Saint Malachi's prophecy has been fulfilled. Mufasa video no engumaye.
Profondo dolore. Devo annunciare la morte del nostro Santo Padre Francesco.
Pope Francis is dead. But while some listened to the news with tears in their eyes, others' faces grew dark with dread. Because his death fulfills a prophecy, an ancient prophecy hidden for centuries in the Vatican's secret archives, the prophecy of Saint Malachi. 900 years ago, as the monk Malachi walked the cobblestone streets of Rome, he was suddenly overtaken by a vision. It was neither a dream nor a hallucination. It was a glimpse into the future of the Catholic Church. In deep trance, Malachi saw the impossible. A long procession of popes marching one after another through the centuries until the very end of days. Malachi recorded his revelations as 112 Latin phrases, each containing a symbol and a warning for every future pope, until he reached the last one. Number 112, Peter the Roman. After him, there would be no more popes, only judgment. Today, the final name was crossed out. For Pope Francis was number 112, counted from Celestine II, just as Malachi had foretold. He was the last link in a prophetic chain begun 9 centuries ago. And today, that chain is broken. The first 111 mottos are brief, poetic, and densely symbolic, describing each pontiff with astonishing accuracy. Their coat of arms, their origin, their personality, or their fate. But when it reached the final one, the tone changed. It was no longer just a simple phrase. Number 112 is long and frightening. An ominous warning which declares, in the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, Peter the Roman will sit shepherding his flock through numerous tribulations. And when these things have come to pass, the city on the 7 hills will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people. The end, Malachi. The prophecy said, Peter the Roman will shepherd his flock through many tribulations. That has been Francis's pontificate, and now, just as it was foretold, it has come to an end. Yet the prophecy ends with these words, "And when these events are complete, the city of 7 hills shall be destroyed, and the terrible judge will pass judgment upon his people." The end. That final phrase, brief yet devastating, marks more than the end of a mere list of popes. It marks the close of an era. The city of 7 hills isn't just a metaphor. Revelation 17 also speaks of a city built upon 7 hills. The 7 heads are the 7 hills upon which the woman sits. This city is no mystery. It is Rome, the same Rome Malachi describes as destined for destruction after the reign of the final pope. A city that will witness judgment, purification, and possibly the collapse of an entire age. And according to the prophecy, the city will indeed be destroyed, not necessarily by fire or warfare. The destruction might be something subtler, something spiritual. Indeed, the core message of this prophecy isn't simply destruction. It ends with a warning. The terrible judge will pass judgment upon his people. In other words, there will be a reckoning, not just of the wicked, but of the faithful too. The prophecy of St. Malachi isn't merely a warning about the end of days. Although many dismiss it as mere legend, the accuracy with which its predictions have unfolded has silenced even some skeptics. The first pope in the prophecy was Celestine II in 1143. Malachi called him ex castro Tiberis, from the castle of the Tiber. Indeed, Guido di Castello, his actual name, was born in the region surrounding the Tiber River, serving as a cardinal within a church situated near Castel Sant'Angelo, next to the river that runs through Rome. This isn't symbolic interpretation, it's precise location. Exact, literal. Centuries later, in modern times, the prophecy continued to prove accurate. John Paul I, elected in 1978, was labeled De Mediatate Lunae, from the half moon. He was elected during a half-moon phase and died just 33 days later, also as a half-moon shone above. His papacy was short, shrouded in mystery, and still today fuels theories surrounding his sudden death. A half-moon indeed, exactly as foretold by the prophecy. To his successor, John Paul II, the prophecy gave the title De Laboris Solis, of the labor of the sun, or the eclipse of the sun. Karol Wojtyla was born on the day of a solar eclipse and passed away on April 8, 2005, during another eclipse. His entire life was like the restless journey of the sun itself. He traveled more extensively than any pope before him, bringing his message of faith across the globe and becoming a symbol of unity, perseverance, and hope. A tireless sun, right until the end. But it doesn't end there. Benedict XVI was called Gloria Olivae, the glory of the olive. Some connected this title to the Benedictine order, symbolically represented by a spiritual olive branch. Others interpreted it through his reserved and peaceful nature, the calm depth of his theology. Undeniably, Benedict chose a papal name that seemed like a deliberate nod towards the prophecy, as if he himself wanted to confirm it. These examples are no mere coincidences. Over and over, the Malachi prophecies have matched historical events, personal biographies, and spiritual symbolism. And thus, what initially appeared to be just poetic verse has now transformed into a truly prophetic record. The last pope would be the final guardian of the Church before the Last Judgment. But Pope Francis' death hasn't just closed a chapter. It has opened a crack, releasing uncertainty that now spreads over the world like a silent shadow. Because if Francis truly was, as many believe, the last pope prophesied, then what comes next is not merely an election, but a leap into the unknown. The question lingering now is, what happens next? Will there be another legitimate pope, or will Peter's throne be occupied by an impostor? For many, the answer is clear. Whoever comes next won't be a shepherd, but rather a wolf in sheep's clothing. Scholars of prophecy and the Book of Revelation point inevitably toward one figure. The successor to Francis will be the false prophet, the one mentioned in Revelation chapter 13, who arises looking gentle and devout, yet speaking words like those of a dragon. His mission will not be to save, but to deceive. He had 2 horns like a lamb, but spoke like a dragon. Questions pile up, and among them 2 troubling ideas echo, warnings we can no longer afford to ignore. If Francis was truly the last pope, who then is next? Could this new leader be the one preparing the way for the Antichrist? The prophecy of Saint Malachi does not stand alone. Scripture itself has been warning for centuries, describing what today seems to unfold right before our eyes.
Abusia video e ko hwe yi me ho adwiri me ho aboto minim se sa na wo fie no wa wo fie a wo hwe no nso ho adwiri wo ho aboto na we de wa hu bi wati bi e wasom me no mienu nyina yasom a ha de makasa fidie we so sa wo tena so de a Royal Television onto omrenwi na last pope Malaki aka no ho asem papa yi tena fidie so wabom a chirichirimu ano abesi so wase last pope nampa onu ni video na kire se last pope Pope Francis na nia wa wote ase yie pa no e kire se religion Christianity especially like I say ano Christianity leader na nka o lead mu a oye bibia no enne Roman na lead Christianity nyina enti yese nia oba no oye nia Bible aka ne ho asem ono no okasa tie nyame osore tie nyame ne niam nyina oye no baba se oye hanbofo nanso obelidi Christianity no into doom like I say nia tie nyina ne say Christianity na wieye aba in short no video no tofa oba kire one say Christianity a Roman di animo no Pope wo na wawu no they say Christianity na wieye aba ti niam Christianity say Pope beba betena so no be fa edi mako nyina no religion ebedi akire nyina no eye nia ekwatia obade over Pacho Medase.
I read the next video.
The next video no the fulfillment of Saint Malachi's prophecy about the last pope. Mufasa video no engumai.
His death echoed across the world in polarized reactions. While many mourned his passing, others felt a chill down their spines as they remembered an ancient prophecy locked away in the Vatican's secret archives, the prophecy of Saint Malachi. In the 12th century, the Irish monk Malachi had a terrifying vision while walking through Rome's streets. In a mystical trance, he saw parade before him all the popes who would lead the Catholic Church until the end of time. This revelation was recorded in 112 cryptic Latin phrases, each describing a future pontiff, with symbols and warnings. The last one, number 112, would be Petrus Romanus, Peter the Roman. After his reign, there would be no more successors, only final judgment. And now, with Francis' death, the circle appears complete. The first 111 mottos were concise, almost poetic, describing each pope's coat of arms, origins, or defining traits with eerie accuracy. But the 112th is different. Longer and darker, it declares, "In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will sit Peter the Roman, who will pasture his sheep among many tribulations. When these things are finished, the seven-hilled city will be destroyed, and the terrible judge will judge his people." 3 key details stand out. And 1. The last pope would be the 112th since Celestine II. 2. His name would connect to Peter. 3. He would have Roman roots and reign in times of crisis. Francis is indeed the 112th pope. His birth name Jorge Mario Bergoglio. But here's fate's irony. Upon election, he chose the name Francis after St. Francis of Assisi, whose real name was Giovanni di Pietro di Bernardone, John, son of Peter. As for Roman lineage, though born in Argentina, his parents were Italians from Piedmont, land once part of the Roman Empire. His blood carried Rome's legacy. And the tribulations. One need only look at the scandals, divisions, and global crises marking his papacy. Coincidence? Perhaps. But for those who believe Malachi's words, Francis' death isn't just the end of a papacy, it's the harbinger of humanity's darkest chapter. Malachi's prophecy didn't just predict Francis as the final pope, it chillingly described his pontificate. He will shepherd his flock through many trials. Indeed, his reign saw no glorious triumphs, only storms, crises, conflicts, and the Church's painful transformation. Francis' own life began under suffering's sign. A severe lung infection nearly killed him as a young man. Surgeons removed part of his right lung in a risky operation. In those endless hospital days, amid antiseptic smells and anxious silence, he confronted mortality itself. While others prayed for his healing, he didn't beg for relief, he sought meaning, and emerged transformed, knowing each breath was a miracle. That same resilience defined his papacy. From the start, he broke molds. First Jesuit pope, first from the Americas, a man who preferred simple shoes to rubies, who called ordinary believers for advice. But humility didn't spare him tempests, the greatest storm. The sexual abuse scandals poisoning the Church for decades. Unlike predecessors, Francis didn't minimize the horror. He met victims, begged forgiveness on his knees, and battled Vatican bureaucracy demanding transparency. Yet at every turn, he hit walls of silence, for some powers prefer shadows to light. Then came division. His "who am I to judge" remark about LGBTQ+. Catholics shook tradition to its core. Traditionalist cardinals accused him of heresy. Conservative. Bishops penned public letters challenging his orthodoxy. They called him a dangerous radical, a doctrine traitor, even a modern Luther. But Francis, with the calm of one who'd stared down death, never flinched. He knew true reform isn't born from consensus, but from courage to walk through fire. Behind the Pope of the Poor's gentle smile stood a man marked by scars, both physical and spiritual. Perhaps that's why he understood the Church's wounds so deeply, and why Malachi's prophecy fit him perfectly. A shepherd guiding his flock, not through peace but chaos, for only those who know pain can truly transform it into redemption. Francis never wavered in his vision. The Church shouldn't be a fortress, but a home with open doors. He dreamed of a community where bishops, laity, women, and even society's outcasts could walk together, discern together, breathe together. To many this was revolutionary. To him, it was simply the gospel. His papacy was a perfect storm of global crises and internal fractures. As wars tore through Ukraine and the Middle East, as the planet burned from climate change, as the pandemic emptied churches, Francis remained a lighthouse in the dark. That haunting image of him alone in St. Peter's Square, standing in rain, before the Blessed Sacrament while the world stood paralyzed, became his mission's symbol. Even when God seems silent, the Church must remain standing. But his boldest moves came outside Vatican walls. In Iraq, where sectarian hatred left deep scars, he declared peace possible. He embraced the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, signed historic pacts with Muslims, hugged Holocaust survivors, and in Cuba, shattered a millennium of ice by embracing Patriarch Kirill. Every gesture was a manifesto. Faith shouldn't build walls but bridges. Inside the Church, resistance ran deep. Traditionalists saw his mercy as weakness, progressives, his reforms as too slow. He simplified rites, stripped away pomp, but never compromised core truths. He washed refugees' feet, visited prisons, urged priests to be field doctors, not judges. His revolution wasn't about doctrine, it was about humanity. So it was that Francis, fulfilling Malachi's prophecy, shepherded his flock through tribulations. Now, with his death, the final warning echoes. When these things are finished, the seven-hilled city will be destroyed, and the terrible judge will judge his people. Francis has departed. Will his message of mercy survive? Or is the world, as prophesied, on the brink of a judgment even the Church cannot stop? The seven-hilled city isn't metaphor, it's Rome, her historic hills as real as the Tiber flowing through her. Here Revelation and Malachi converge. After the last pope, the eternal city faces devastating judgment. But this destruction may not come with bombs or quakes. Perhaps it'll be a silent collapse, a spiritual erosion undermining foundations laid centuries ago. Malachi's prophecy isn't mystical fiction, its details are too precise for coincidence. Celestine II, from the Tiber's castle, was literally Guido di Castello, born by the river near Castel Sant'Angelo. John Paul I, of the half moon, reigned just 33 days between two crescent moons. John Paul II, of the sun's labor, lived between two solar eclipses at birth and death. Benedict XVI, the olive's glory, carried in name and spirit Benedictine peace. Now with Francis, the 112th Peter the Roman, the prophecy concludes. His papacy mirrored the final tribulations, pandemics, wars, church divisions. But what comes next is darker still. The prophecy announces no new pope, only void, or worse, a usurper. Scholars of Revelation see here the false prophets rise, one with lamb's horns but dragon's voice, a leader coming not to unite but deceive, not to save but lead into the abyss. As Rome, the seven-hilled city, faces her fate, humanity confronts a terrifying question. Are we witnessing not a papacy's end but judgment's prelude? The answer, as always, lies between history's lines and in the shadows of the approaching future. Questions multiply, but two burn urgent. If Francis was truly prophecy's last pope, who follows? And darker yet, could the next leader be the Antichrist's forerunner? Scripture long foretold this moment. Paul warned the Thessalonians of the rebellion preceding the man of lawlessness. Christ in Matthew 24 predicted wars, famines, plagues as birth pains. Today we need only look around. Pandemics, armed conflicts, climate disasters, moral decay eating civilization's foundations. These aren't coincidences, they're signs. For centuries, these prophecies seemed distant. Now, after Francis' death, they materialize with terrifying clarity. Faith will be betrayed. A false leader will rise. Impiety.
Abutia sabiri wani guso a wo hye eye Wake Up Africa e wo Royal Television so na prophecy na ofa e maye hwehwe no we anya video baako eye different videos a e ka Malachi prophecy na ni nyina so yade asisi ni okafa popes na ba ni nyina ho na asisi pepepepepepe am what you said the last pope onunie na after we no judgment religion over
next video
no Saint Malachi's prophecy is Pope Francis the final pope. Question I will be no. But that video no munje ngumayo.
But it is the 112th and final entry that has gripped the imagination of believers and truth-seekers alike. This prophecy does not simply assign a motto. Instead, it presents a full, chilling paragraph unlike anything in the previous entries. In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will reign Peter the Roman, who will feed his flock among many tribulations, after which the seven-hilled city will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people. The end. Pope Francis, the 112th and final pope. According to many interpretations, Pope Francis is the 112th pope on Malachi's list, described by the motto Petrus Romanus, not by name but by implication. Born Jorge Mario Bergoglio in Argentina, his roots trace back to Italy, specifically Piedmont in northern Italy, making him ethnically Roman. Symbolically, Francis also chose his papal name after Saint Francis of Assisi, whose birth name was Giovanni di Pietro di Bernardone, literally Peter. Some scholars argue this subtle nod to Peter the Roman was no accident. In choosing the name Francis, Pope Francis may have unintentionally or divinely fulfilled the last symbolic identifier of the final pope. Others believe the real Peter the Roman is still to come, perhaps a final usurper or a false shepherd who will deceive many in the guise of a pope. Now, with the death of Pope Francis, all eyes turn to the conclave. Will the next pope explicitly match the name Peter the Roman? Or was Pope Francis the final true pontiff, signaling that the next figure to rise will be one not appointed by God, but sent as part of judgment? This final passage from Malachi's vision is steeped in apocalyptic language. The phrase, final persecution, evokes the dark days described in Scripture.
days of apostasy, spiritual deception, martyrdom, and global chaos. The flock being fed amidst many tribulations implies a time of intense spiritual struggle. The church, once seen as a bastion of hope, is instead navigating storms of internal corruption, division, and loss of faith. Are we not already seeing this? In recent years, the church has faced growing scandals, doctrinal disputes, and cultural compromise. It is fragmented from within and mocked from without. This is not merely coincidence. It may be the very persecution Malachi foresaw. Next, the prophecy warns of the destruction of the city of 7 hills, a clear reference to Rome, traditionally known for its 7 hills: Aventine, Caelian, Capitoline, Esquiline, Palatine, Quirinal, and Viminal. This isn't just a metaphor. It is a direct forecast of Rome's fall, spiritually, and perhaps even physically, through war, natural disaster, or divine judgment. Finally, we are told that the dreadful judge will judge his people. This solemn ending does not merely suggest a papal transition or the end of an era, but the final judgment itself, an eschatological moment when Christ, the true judge, returns to separate the righteous from the wicked. This chilling conclusion leads many to believe that Malachi's list wasn't just a prediction of popes. It was a countdown to the end of the church age. If Pope Francis was the final legitimate pope in Malachi's vision, then whoever comes next may be outside divine authority, an agent of chaos, a counterfeit shepherd who will prepare the world for the Antichrist's reign. And so, as the smoke rises from the Vatican chimney once again, and as the world watches in suspense, we are not just witnessing the election of a pope, we may be witnessing the beginning of the final war between truth and deception, between the Lamb and the Beast.
Pope Francis has been hospitalized since February 14, 2025, at the Gemelli Hospital in Rome. What began as bronchitis evolved into severe pneumonia affecting both lungs. As if that wasn't enough, his condition worsened with kidney failure, severe anemia, and a drastic drop in blood platelets. And then, on the day after Easter Sunday, right when Christians celebrate the resurrection of Christ, his death was officially confirmed. And in this dramatic context, the prophecy of the 112 popes returns with full force. The prophecy speaks of 112 spiritual leaders who would guide the church until the end of times. Each one is described by a short Latin motto, supposedly revealed by God to Bishop Malachi during a visit to Rome. Interestingly, these records weren't published until much later in 1595 by a monk named Arnold de Wyon. This centuries-long gap raises suspicion. Was the text altered? Could it have been used to influence papal elections? Still, what truly shocks people is the precision of these mottos. Many describe popes and the historical events of their time with uncanny accuracy. Many believe this list may be more than just a myth. Now we have arrived at the final name on that list. According to the prophecy, Pope Francis would be the 112th pontiff, and the next may not be a pope at all, but rather the false prophet of Revelation, a charismatic spiritual leader fully allied with a global system of deception. He would pave the way for the Antichrist, using signs, sweet words, and false promises to lead the world astray. If this is true, we are witnessing something massive, a historical moment, a spiritual marker. That leads us to the inevitable question: are the signs already here, and are most people too blind to see them? To understand the weight of this prophecy, we need to look back and see how it has been fulfilled precisely, pope after pope. It starts with Pius VI, who led the Church from 1903 to 1914. His motto was Ignis Ardens, which means burning fire. And what marked his papacy? An intense faith and a fierce fight against the heresies of the time. He reformed the liturgy, fiercely defended church morality, and was seen as a true spiritual warrior, a flame that would not go out exactly as the motto described. After him came Benedict XV, who reigned from 1914 to 1922 with the motto Religio Depopulata, which translates as religion devastated. And what was the major event during his time? World War I, a conflict that devastated not only nations but also the faith of millions. Churches in ruins, Christians massacred, priests killed on battlefields, a true spiritual collapse. Coincidence? Next, we have Pius the Wounds, from 1922 to 1939. His motto was Fides Intrepid, or Fearless Faith. He led the church during the rise of fascism and Nazism. Even under constant threats, he did not remain silent. He publicly denounced the abuses of totalitarian regimes and stood against the darkness. Fearless faith, just like the prophecy said. Then came Pius XIII, 1939-1958, linked to the motto Pastor Angelicus, angelic shepherd. During World War II, he had to guide the church with caution. Some say he was silent, others say he was strategic, helping refugees in secret. But one thing is clear, he shepherded his flock during chaos like an angel trying to protect his own. After him came John XXIII between 1958 and 1963. His motto, Pastor et Nauta, shepherd and navigator. And guess what? He guided the church through turbulent waters, initiating reforms that changed the direction of Catholicism. He was like a captain steering through a stormy sea. The motto fit like a glove. Can we still say it's all just coincidence? We're only halfway through this prophetic timeline, and it's already becoming too disturbing to ignore. After John, faith these, came Paul VI from 1963 to 1978, with the motto Flos Florum, which means flower of flowers. And here's a surreal detail. His papal coat of arms contained 3 lilies, classic symbols of purity and devotion. Flowers. That can't be fabricated. The symbol was present from the beginning on his robes, insignias, and official art. After him, in 1978, came John Paul I, with the motto De Mediatate Lunae, or from the half moon. And now, hold on, he reigned for only 33 days and died under mysterious circumstances. Coincidence? Maybe, but listen to this. His election and death occurred during the lunar calendar's exact half-moon phases. Even the skeptics have a hard time brushing that off. Then came John Paul II, one of the most well-known popes in history, from 1978 to 2005. His prophetic motto was De Labore Solis, meaning from the work of the sun. And now, the coincidences explode. He was born on a solar eclipse. He died during a partial eclipse. He became one of the most radiant leaders in history, spreading the faith across the globe, like the sun rising in the east and setting in the west. He was a light to the nations, and once again, the motto fits exactly. Then came Benedict XVI from 2005 to 2013. His motto, Gloria Olivae, the glory of the olive. The olive branch is a symbol of peace, but also of the order of Saint Benedict. And even though Benedict XVI wasn't directly part of that order, the name he chose, Benedict, was a clear nod to it. But the most defining act of his papacy wasn't symbolic. It was his resignation, something almost unthinkable in the Catholic Church. That shook the foundations of the Vatican and led many to believe that we had officially entered the end of the list. The prophecy was nearing completion. And then came the final name, Francis. If you've made it this far, you already understand. This prophecy is not just another forgotten theory lost in time. What comes next is the most delicate and at the same time the most explosive part of the entire story. The final name on the list is known as Peter the Roman. The prophecy states that this man would guide the church during the Great Tribulation, that Rome would be destroyed after his reign, and that judgment would follow. But how could Pope Francis, born in Argentina, be this Peter the Roman? The answer lies in the details. Francis was born Jorge Mario Bergoglio, the son of Italian immigrants. His bloodline is fully Roman. And more than that, when he became Pope, he chose the name Francis in honor of St. Francis of Assisi, whose birth name was Giovanni di Pietro, that is, John of Peter, Pietro, Peter. In other words, he is a Peter by heritage, choice, and symbol, and Roman by blood. For those who believe in the prophecy of Saint Malachi, there is no doubt that Francis was the last. And what does that mean? This means that the next man to sit on the papal throne may not be a true pope, but a spiritual figure cloaked in authority who will act in alliance with the system of the Antichrist. He will be the false prophet of Revelation 13 and 17, deceiving the masses with signs, wonders, and false peace. A leader who will not only infiltrate faith, but will use faith as a weapon to seduce the entire world. If this interpretation is correct, then the next phase of human history will be marked by spiritual deception on a global scale.
Abusia Sabri mene uguso ayehwe ayedwumadi ayato ne Wake Up Africa ewo Royal Television so. Na video yi kire of asema wakafa 8 pope ayomode the last pope Malachi prophecy no e ka omho asem na niema and science ni niema e form ho a ni nyina ne sisi pepe na obobo so abesi the last pope I no so kire say ampa ono the last pope owie no ka say after no opa gidi opa jai eno an offer e ka kire ose no say the last pope Pope Francis na after no ose ne obeba no oye sheep in a wolf a wolf in a sheep cloth we dwura ne ho oba han bofo na ho na mo be hunti you say that is judgment eno na yakwakwahwe video no over
Kofi midimanu be si ama amanfo abem Francis ko the process of destroying the city on the 7 hills has begun. Babylon Babe fiase the process no fiase that's
over yeah that's papa Israel my memra ho na ka bibiu de fa 1 December akopɛ fa tuja na okay ombo mic won
me I can't rule my
they can you answer
mo fanto ne so mami na okay over Isaac asa
they can you answer omwa omma shenkom efa mutrobus efa last pope no ebiani Ghana for you muye de bibini
yeah
you muye de
yeah
Malachi otrobu efa Hanson so many Michael Nostradamus
yeah
otrobu ko efa also the other
yeah
what candidate
yeah
man we say and Pope John Paul who you know okache say Pope Oba no so no say Frasinga no munya you know
za
na so one Frasinga no say obiba ono be ni Pope ono kuta the doctrine of the Catholic and you know ono be you know with the great program so kasemo
and asa ho nkwan
encyclopedia
of Israel Kenya ukwa o
it me no on can't self money for that afa enipa more than 900 na frame be say atrofo be say na dan Nigeria crop for no frame say I want to be there fail don't fail
it don't fail yeah and what chirimu
spiritually
yeah
ejuma say on my no see
they say religion Christianity spiritually is dead
and the Oba no oni Bible no mu
yabi obeye duma maboro sam papa see
so I say last pope so so ntiasia
yeah medase okay yo
kweku
abusuafo MCR mofa number no entiso mana mere na aka no ye na abusuafo entwetwe enkomo
yeah mo hwe asole mu no one judge.
Na sisi asofo na nkasa kwa meso mabu.
Chile pa.
Yo mi tio pa.
Christian space. E fa judge. Hwe abafo esua de papa. E research papa. Enti no do kan no abem. Medase. Ane. Na me Yati azie. Jebusiafo spiritually no religion nene Christ. Hello.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, udini fa kwa frefi. Hallelujah.
Oh, udini na ma me kasa fi akatia.
Me pa cho yenko, yetio.
Oba de nka mo ho. Mama some say no clear adedi. Mama no clear adedi, ma ni pe nyina we say ampa. We ka pa Africa for Asia de. We can clear so na ye tebian so atamu.
Yeah.
Anya wawo ga ni jaja beto no ha dan no me brother friend you better go from
kakra no bi
to ura is fufu bi da nya na da na be fufu
ya da se kakra time no mbere ni sa what language are they speaking? We here question one fan din amma. Okay, hi Royal TV, I'm Yeboah Damien watching you live from Bipuase. Keep the fire burning. Hello, Dini Fakwa Ufrefi.
Sanko Fachi, Kasafri, no Bibiat.
Mebacho Yetio.
Ye, Mamma, me hold you, papa. If I follow by Anna, they do PVR, her, the union was a problem, and some matching the amazing. Papa, papa, because if you know the economy. Oh, who give me papa, you're now coming to say, if you to similar, who from me? I beg you, and me, Shammy,
yo,
now maybe a nephew,
yeah, that's it. Yes, yeah, that's it. I'm watching you from Kumasi. I'm big sinner, and I don't all this still today. So, is there any salvation for if I repent from now? Hey, what message you know? And you're clear. Hello, Dini Fakwa Frefi.
Yo, a friend could see.
Me bacho yenti.
The Cassandra don't. Okay. Me said that banana is a question. I didn't say of a better children. If you are not sorry, good. It may be say, even if you put you're not fighting with Pope, but you are fighting the institutions now more creating on. Yeah, remember, I said, very message, no, because we see our son, the cool as African Canada.
Yeah, that's it. I say, well, sir, please, can you train my son? Offer, Obi Asama, Obi Saunon. I say, please, can you train my son? Okay. Hello, Dini Fakwa Frefi.
Actually, from me, much me Kasaki Dansoma.
Yo, me pacho yetio. Dansoma. Okay. Okay.
Me pacho me say, Ghana so for no. Pope ni baby or one.
Pacho, question dia no. Yo, already what bisa so for no. Okay. Me pacho yo. Okowa hu. Where you bisa no question. Hello, Dini Fakwa Frefi.
But I blame my capacity.
Okay, you might yentio short. Pacho munya nti.
You bisa any calendar.
Yeah, that's
who is a calendar?
Yeah, that's it.
Who is a calendar?
Yeah, that's it. 12 Pope and served for 12 years. Very mysterious. Obidia or dia banono. Hello, Udini Fakwa Frefi.
Hello.
Yeah, hello, Udini Fakwa Frefi. Okay, me pacho yetio.
Like na mini ye all can na na person guarantee service you on ya mati on the next bit nya kwaje
na kwaje yi message bia no de ama wo yo we utie ya na me say oh akwaje na oje wo no. Okay, of asem wa bisa no yo, please, I want to ask, so is there any salvation from now onwards? Let me say jama papa ya na send it. Hello, Udini Fakwa Frefi. Hello, Udini Fakwa. Me pacho yo yetio.
Bacho me dise nti sana. Ya vema ben takwa.
Okay, yetio. Enti o.
Ntempese Christian so na be no wie ye no. Ubo mpaya. Yangupo mbetiana.
Yo, yeah that say. Of tini nyina mo question nyina obeyi ano say nye nekra na me say next week obeyi ano de mama. Well, hello my brother. I am watching your TV program. Can I have the video you have just shown about the last pope? Call YouTube. Na call Facebook. Call Facebook and YouTube. What they call YouTube. Na call Wake Up Africa GH. Obenya sa video no. Okay. Hello, Dini Fakwa Frefi.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Owusu, calling from Kumasi.
Okay, please. Yes. Please.
Shalom alaikum.
Yeah.
To all the Hebrew
shalom alaikum. Okay.
I don't want to reveal about it. I think I want to say that there are times when I bless you.
Okay.
So why didn't you out?
Yeah,
that's my message. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's it. So today, why people know all this? I'm Emmanuel from Tadi. Okay. Good afternoon. I think it's after 1:12 and the Peter will come by Dominic in Kumasi. Where they also saying, hello, Dini Fakwa Frefi.
Upon me Kasafi Accra.
Yo, upon Pacho Yetiopa.
What I can see, me say, more fairly, but rather, St. Malachi, who has failed, St. Malachi was not under the direction of God. Something else, some different power, probably the devil, led St. Malachi. Apparently, Pope Francis is never the last pope. There will be more popes. So St. Malachi got it wrong. That is what I can see.
Okay, thank you very much. Please, why do you quote and accept some parts of the book of Revelation and yet dismiss chapter 22, verse 20, about the second coming of Jesus? Hello, Dini Fakwa Frefi. Hello, Dini Fakwa Frefi. Okay, Otiene Honti. I'm Adumako Samuel from Central Regions. The white man has used this book to control African. Okay, book Bayam. Hello, Dini Fakwa Frefi.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, hello, Dini Fakwa Frefi.
You're calling Dada, Mikasefi Takwa.
Yo, Dada Etio.
And so, Obi said, Christianity, walk when you know. You're going to pay a good point between Christianity, young people, or the Bayana. They are good for the Christianity debate. Christianity, you're going some not to share the many back. And then you pay the why may I multiply choice? Something here, the tea, and tea, the tea. And I get the chin and yellow. And then what you have, one of what the band, what's the way we need more control agony. It's a way we need you. It's only not the Christianity, the Christianity, I mean, so your way of life. One can say the way we believe in Wabla Balo, your body in our land. See, on the Nakuni, no man or body.
Yo, yeah, that's it. Shalom, brothers. Please, let truth be told. Wafayao actually told us clearly at Kawokudi class that Pope Francis would be the last pope. Jefta. Okay. Panso so sa no kanye na on national TV no so sa no kanye. May Yahweh bless you and certify you long life full of strength of Ayao. I'm learning Amachi senior. Aye. Okay. Yo. Me pato ebia na opese ensiremu bi ne nsambisa bi wo ho a opese ubisa eye Wake Up Africa ene ho dwumadie ne ho ne ma nyina. To number we to ho na aya wa frɛ 0244 686557 0244 686557. So that number we to na nsambisa bia opɛ no wabisa na wabisa nkyeremu bia ho no nsa ebeka. Ni America ne say yen kasa from the offer any mpanyifo a ewo dwumadie isu no enye religion spectacle and omo hye no mo de kasa na emom no omo ye Hebrew fo a obo ade yi omo se omo fa no kure mmre wiase na no kure bia no kure hye bia no papa yi obeyi aba na ba bia atro ye de tro ahye bia no wada tro na di ɛno ne dwumadi a waba ɛno nti ɔkasa aya mo a mo share spectacle no from the angle of religion no amo benya haw kakra na sɛ mo to mo bo ase na mo tie papa no na mo so mo hwe nti ɔkasa ne waka no fawo ɔse ɔno waka wo so kɔyɛ onhwehwɛmu onya hwehwɛmu bia enso so na waba with religion spectacle no na waka ne sɛ obɛka ɛno nti yɛbɛsrɛ mo ɛno ɛna yɛka ho asɛm me a me di dwumadi em tia me medin ene Kofi Kumi ofa ya opoku dankwa ɛyɛ Wake Up Africa Free the Mind Movement executive director ɔne ne ba Israel Nkroma sampanyifo yi ɛna nɛ dwumadi me ne omudu ye ɔbɔ ade dum yɛn na ɔde kyɛn ya da sɛ nɛ fidie so ayi bɛsɛn ahyia me de obi bi ase